You know, I've been teaching success principles for many years now, and I've watched thousands of people transform their lives. And if there's one thing I've learned, one fundamental truth that separates those who make it from those who don't, it's this. At some point, you've got to be willing to do it alone. Now, I'm not talking about isolating yourself from the world. I'm not suggesting you become a hermit or push away everyone who cares about you. What I'm talking about is something far more profound. I'm talking about that moment when you realize that your dreams, your goals, your vision for your life, these things belong to you and you alone. And if they're going to become reality, you're going to have to take personal responsibility for making them happen. Let me tell you something that might sting a little bit, but it's the truth. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to work harder on your dreams than they work on their own. Nobody is going to lose sleep over your success the way you will. And that's not a criticism of the people in your life. It's just reality. Everyone is fighting their own battles, chasing their own dreams, dealing with their own challenges. So what does this mean for you? It means you've got to develop a kind of self-reliance that goes beyond what most people are willing to cultivate. You've got to become the kind of person who can stand alone when necessary, who can push forward when the crowd is pulling back, who can believe when everyone else doubts. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you develop this capacity to do it alone, something magical happens. You actually become more valuable to others. You become someone people want to be around, someone they want to work with, someone they respect. Because self-reliance is magnetic. Independence is attractive. When people see someone who doesn't need constant validation, who doesn't need their hand held every step of the way, who can think for themselves and execute their own plans, they want to know that person. They want to learn from that person. But you can't start there. You can't begin with the crowd's approval. You've got to begin with your own conviction. Think about every great achievement in human history. Think about the inventors, the entrepreneurs, the artists, the pioneers. At some point in their journey, every single one of them had to stand alone. There was a moment when their idea was just an idea, when their vision was just a vision, when nobody else could see what they could see, and in that moment they had a choice. Wait for everyone else to believe or move forward alone. The ones we remember, the ones who changed the world, they chose to move forward alone. Now, I want to be very clear about something. Doing it alone doesn't mean doing it without learning. It doesn't mean rejecting wisdom or refusing help. What it means is taking ultimate responsibility. It means you're the captain of your ship. You can have advisors, you can have mentors, you can have teammates, but at the end of the day, it's your ship, and you're responsible for where it goes. See, here's what happens to most people. They have a dream, they have a goal, they have something they want to accomplish, and then they start talking about it. They share it with friends, with family, with coworkers. And what happens? Some people are supportive, sure, but many people, often the people closest to you, they start throwing cold water on your dreams. They start telling you why it won't work. They start pointing out all the obstacles. They start reminding you of your past failures. And here's the thing, they're not doing it to be cruel. They're doing it because they care about you. They don't want to see you get hurt. They don't want to see you fail. They don't want to see you disappointed. So they try to protect you by lowering your expectations, by talking you out of your big dreams, by convincing you to play it safe. But what they don't understand, what they can't understand unless they've been on this journey themselves, is that playing it safe is the riskiest thing you can do. Playing it small, settling for less than you're capable of, abandoning your dreams to make other people comfortable, that's not protection. That's slow death. So you've got to learn to do it alone. You've got to learn to trust your own judgment. You've got to learn to believe in yourself even when nobody else believes in you. Especially when nobody else believes in you. Let me share something with you. When you decide to do something extraordinary, when you set a big goal, when you commit to becoming more than you currently are, you're going to face resistance. And that resistance is going to come from two places, from outside and from inside. The outside resistance is what I've been talking about. The doubters, the critics, the people who try to talk you out of it. That's challenging, but it's manageable. You can limit your exposure to those people. You can choose not to share your dreams with people who aren't going to support them. You can surround yourself with better influences. But the inside resistance, that's trickier. That's the voice in your own head that says, who do you think you are? You're not smart enough for this. You're not talented enough. You don't have the resources. You don't have the connections. You're going to fail, and everyone is going to laugh at you. That voice is loud, and it's convincing because it knows all your weaknesses, all your failures, all your fears. It knows exactly what to say to stop you in your tracks. And this is where doing it alone becomes absolutely critical. Because when you commit to doing it alone, you're not just committing to working independently, you're committing to thinking independently. You're committing to not accepting every thought that pops into your head as truth. You're committing to questioning your own doubts just as vigorously as you question other people's doubts. You've got to become your own best coach. You've got to learn to talk to yourself the way a great mentor would talk to you. You've got to learn to encourage yourself, to challenge yourself, to push yourself forward even when every fiber of your being wants to retreat to comfort and safety. Here's a fundamental truth about success. It requires you to become a different person. The person you are right now with your current habits, your current thinking patterns, your current level of discipline, that person is perfectly designed to create the life you currently have. If you want a different life, you've got to become a different person. And nobody can do that for you. Nobody can change your habits for you. Nobody can change your thinking for you. Nobody can develop your discipline for you. You've got to do it alone. Now, this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They wait for motivation. They wait for inspiration. They wait to feel like it. And they think that's reasonable. They think, when I'm ready, I'll start. When I feel motivated, I'll take action. When the conditions are right, I'll make my move. But here's what I've learned after all these years. You can't wait for motivation. You've got to create it. And you create it through action. You create it by doing the thing even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. See, amateurs wait for inspiration. Professionals create it. Amateurs wait until conditions are perfect. Professionals make conditions perfect through their actions. Amateurs need someone to push them. Professionals push themselves. And when you develop this capacity, this ability to do it alone, to motivate yourself, to push yourself, to hold yourself accountable, you tap into a power that most people never discover. You tap into the power of self-determination. You become unstoppable. Not because you don't face obstacles, you face the same obstacles everyone else faces, but because you don't need anyone's permission to overcome them. You don't need anyone's approval to keep going. You don't need anyone's encouragement to persist. Let me tell you about the seasons of life. There are seasons for planting and there are seasons for harvesting. There are seasons for learning and there are seasons for earning. There are seasons for preparation and there are seasons for execution. And here's what's interesting. During the planting season, you're going to be working while other people are playing. You're going to be studying while other people are partying. You're going to be preparing while other people are relaxing. And during that season, you're going to feel alone. You're going to feel like you're missing out. You're going to wonder if it's worth it. But then the harvest season comes, and suddenly you're reaping rewards that other people can't understand. You're experiencing success that seems to come out of nowhere to everyone else, but you know it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from all those hours you worked alone. It came from all those sacrifices you made alone. It came from all that discipline you developed alone. The problem is most people aren't willing to endure the loneliness of the planting season. They want the harvest without the planning. They want the success without the sacrifice. They want the results without the work. But life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't care about what you want. Life only cares about what you earn. And you earn success through what you do when nobody's watching. You earn it through the discipline you exercise when there's no one there to hold you accountable. You earn it through the work you do alone. Now, I want to talk about something that's going to challenge you. I want to talk about the comfort of the crowd versus the power of solitude. Human beings are social creatures. We have a deep need to belong, to be accepted, to be part of the group. And there's nothing wrong with that. Community is important, relationships are important, but here's the danger. If you're not careful, that need for acceptance will override your need for growth. That desire to fit in will sabotage your desire to stand out. See, the crowd is comfortable. The crowd is safe. When you're in the crowd, you don't have to make tough decisions. The crowd makes them for you. You don't have to think for yourself. The crowd thinks for you. You don't have to take responsibility. The crowd diffuses responsibility across everyone. But the crowd is also mediocre. The crowd is average. The crowd doesn't achieve extraordinary things because extraordinary things require extraordinary effort. And the crowd always gravitates toward the path of least resistance. So if you want to achieve something extraordinary, you've got to be willing to step away from the crowd. You've got to be willing to endure the discomfort of standing alone. You've got to be willing to be misunderstood, to be questioned, to be doubted. And let me tell you, that's not easy. When you step away from the crowd, when you choose a different path, when you pursue a vision that others don't share, you're going to face criticism, you're going to face skepticism, you're going to face loneliness. But here's what you need to understand, that loneliness is temporary, but the regret of not pursuing your dreams is permanent. The discomfort of doing it alone lasts for a season, but the disappointment of living below your potential lasts a lifetime. I've met so many people in their later years who look back with regret. And you know what they regret? It's not the things they tried and failed at. It's not the risks they took that didn't work out. It's the dreams they abandoned. It's the goals they never pursued. It's the potential they never developed because they weren't willing to do it alone. Don't let that be you. Don't sacrifice your potential on the altar of acceptance. Don't trade your dreams for the comfort of fitting in. Here's another critical lesson about doing it alone. You've got to learn to be your own best friend. You've got to learn to enjoy your own company. You've got to learn to have conversations with yourself that are productive, encouraging, challenging in the right ways. Most people are terrible at being alone because they're terrible at being with themselves. They can't stand their own company, so they constantly distract themselves. They fill every moment with noise, television, social media, music, other people, anything to avoid being alone with their thoughts. But solitude is where growth happens. Solitude is where clarity comes. Solitude is where you figure out who you really are and what you really want. In the noise and chaos of constant connection and distraction, you can lose yourself. You can start living according to other people's expectations, other people's definitions of success, other people's dreams. But in solitude, in those quiet moments when it's just you and your thoughts, that's where you reconnect with yourself. That's where you remember what really matters to you. That's where you gain the clarity and courage to pursue your own path. Now, I'm not saying you should become antisocial. I'm not saying you should cut yourself off from the world. What I'm saying is you need to create space for solitude. You need to protect time for yourself. Time to think, time to plan, time to dream, time to work on your goals without distraction or interruption. The most successful people I know, the ones who have achieved extraordinary things, they all have this in common. They protect their time alone. They guard their solitude. They understand that their greatest work happens not in meetings or social gatherings, but in those quiet hours when they can focus deeply, think clearly, and work intensively. Let me talk to you about responsibility, real responsibility. When you decide to do it alone, you're taking on total responsibility for your results. You're not blaming the economy, you're not blaming your upbringing, you're not blaming your circumstances, you're not blaming other people. And this is liberating, because when you stop blaming external factors for your situation, you reclaim your power. When you accept that you're responsible, totally responsible, for where you are and where you're going, you gain the power to change it. See, blame is seductive. It's easy. It feels good in the moment. When things aren't going well, it's comforting to point to something or someone else and say, that's why I'm not succeeding. That's why I haven't achieved my goals. That's what's holding me back. But blame is also a trap, because as long as you're blaming something external, you're powerless to change it. As long as you're waiting for the economy to improve, or for people to change, or for circumstances to line up perfectly, you're stuck. You're at the mercy of forces outside your control. But when you take responsibility, when you say, I'm responsible for my results, regardless of my circumstances, you free yourself. You empower yourself. You put yourself in the driver's seat of your own life. This is what doing it alone really means. It means taking ownership. It means accepting that your success or failure is up to you. It means understanding that you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. You can't control the cards you're dealt, but you can control how you play them. And when you embrace this level of responsibility, something amazing happens. You stop making excuses and start making progress. You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating conditions. You stop looking for someone to rescue you and start rescuing yourself. Now, let's talk about the process of doing it alone, because it's not just about working independently, it's about developing a whole set of skills and habits that most people never develop. First, you've got to become a great self-educator. You've got to learn how to learn on your own. In today's world, this is easier than ever. You have access to more information than any generation in human history. You can learn almost anything if you're willing to put in the time and effort. But here's the key. You can't wait for someone to teach you. You can't wait for the perfect course or the perfect mentor. You've got to take initiative. You've got to seek out knowledge. You've got to read books, listen to talks, study successful people, experiment, practice, fail, learn, and grow. Most people are passive learners. They wait for information to come to them. They wait for someone to teach them. But if you're going to do it alone, you've got to become an active learner. You've got to hunt for knowledge like your life depends on it, because it does. Second, you've got to become a great self-motivator. You can't rely on external motivation. You can't wait for a pep talk or a motivational video to get you moving. You've got to generate your own energy, your own enthusiasm, your own drive. How do you do this? You do it by connecting deeply with your reasons. You do it by keeping your goals and your vision front and center. You do it by reminding yourself daily why you're doing what you're doing. You do it by celebrating small wins. You do it by tracking your progress. You do it by feeding your mind with positive, empowering information. Third, you've got to become a great self-discipliner. This might be the most important skill of all, because motivation comes and goes, but discipline is forever. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. And discipline is entirely an inside job. Nobody can discipline you. Nobody can make you do the things you need to do. You've got to develop the internal strength to do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. This is where most people fail. They have good intentions. They have big dreams, but they don't have the discipline to follow through. They work hard when they feel like it. They stay focused when things are exciting. They persist when conditions are favorable. But the moment things get difficult, the moment they stop feeling motivated, the moment the work gets boring or challenging, they quit, they give up, they move on to something else. If you're going to do it alone, you can't afford that luxury. You've got to develop the discipline to keep going no matter what. You've got to build the habit of following through. You've got to create systems and routines that keep you on track even when your willpower is weak. Fourth, you've got to become a great problem solver. When you're doing it alone, problems don't stop you. They just slow you down temporarily. Every obstacle is just a puzzle to solve. Every challenge is just an opportunity to grow. But most people aren't trained to think this way. Most people see a problem and immediately look for someone to solve it for them. They see an obstacle and wait for someone to remove it. They face a challenge and hope someone will step in to help. When you commit to doing it alone, you develop a different relationship with problems. You see them as inevitable, as part of the journey, as opportunities to develop new skills and capabilities. And you develop confidence in your ability to figure things out. You become resourceful, you become creative, you become resilient, because you know that no matter what happens, you'll find a way through. You might not know exactly how right now, but you trust yourself to figure it out. This is a huge competitive advantage. While other people are stuck waiting for help or giving up when things get hard, you're solving problems. You're finding ways. You're making progress. Now let me address something important. When I talk about doing it alone, some people hear that and think I'm saying you should never ask for help, never collaborate, never build a team. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that you can't be dependent on other people for your success. You can't need other people to make your dreams come true. You can want their help, you can appreciate their support, you can benefit from their collaboration, but you can't need it. There's a huge difference between wanting help and needing help. When you need help, you're powerless without it. You're stuck. You can't move forward. When you want help, you can benefit from it, but you're not dependent on it. You can keep moving either way. This is an important distinction, because when you need people, you give them power over your life. They can control you, they can manipulate you, they can abandon you and leave you stranded. But when you develop the capacity to do it alone, you're free. You can choose to work with people from a position of strength, not from a position of weakness. You can form partnerships and collaborations based on mutual benefit, not based on desperate need. And ironically, this makes you much more attractive as a partner or team member. People want to work with people who don't need them, who could do it alone but choose to collaborate because it makes sense, not because they have no other option. Let me tell you about the power of commitment. When you truly commit to doing it alone, when you accept total responsibility for your results, you tap into a force that most people never experience. See, as long as you have escape routes, as long as you have backup plans that involve waiting for someone else or depending on someone else, you'll take them. You'll give yourself permission to quit when things get hard. You'll find reasons why it's okay to stop trying. But when you burn the boats, when you commit fully, when you decide that failure is not an option and that you're going to figure this out no matter what it takes, that's when miracles happen. That's when you discover capabilities you didn't know you had. That's when you find solutions you couldn't see before. That's when you push through barriers that seemed insurmountable. Total commitment unleashes total power. Partial commitment produces partial results. If you want extraordinary results, you need extraordinary commitment. And that commitment has to come from you alone. Now, I want to talk about the loneliness that comes with doing it alone, because it's real and it's challenging. When you're working on something big, when you're pursuing a goal that others don't understand, when you're making sacrifices that others aren't willing to make, you're going to feel isolated. You're going to have moments where you wonder if you're crazy. You're going to have moments where you long for the comfort of the crowd, where you wish you could just be normal, where you question whether it's all worth it. And in those moments, you've got to dig deep. You've got to reconnect with your vision. You've got to remember why you started. You've got to focus on the long-term reward, not the short-term discomfort. Because here's the truth. Loneliness is a small price to pay for freedom. Temporary isolation is a small price to pay for permanent achievement. The discomfort of standing alone today is nothing compared to the regret of never trying tomorrow. And here's something else. The loneliness doesn't last forever. As you grow, as you achieve, as you become more successful, you'll find your people. You'll attract others who are on similar journeys. You'll connect with people who understand what you're trying to do because they're trying to do similar things. But you can't wait for them. You can't put your journey on hold until you find your tribe. You've got to be willing to walk alone until the right people show up. And they will show up, but only if you're actually walking. Let me share something that's helped me over the years. When you're doing it alone, it's crucial to develop a strong sense of purpose. You've got to know not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it. You've got to connect your daily actions to a bigger mission, a bigger vision, a bigger reason. Because on the days when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you're ready to quit, your purpose is what keeps you going. Your why is what gets you out of bed. Your mission is what gives you strength when your energy is depleted. Most people never take the time to clarify their purpose. They drift through life, pursuing goals that don't really matter to them, working toward things that won't satisfy them even if they achieve them. And then they wonder why they lack motivation, why they struggle with discipline, why they can't seem to follow through. But when you have a clear, compelling purpose, when you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, everything changes. The work becomes meaningful. The sacrifices become worthwhile. The journey becomes fulfilling, not just the destination. So take time to get clear on your purpose. Ask yourself, what am I really trying to accomplish? Why does it matter? What difference will it make? Who will benefit? What kind of person will I become in the process? And when you get clear on these answers, when your purpose becomes real and vivid and compelling, you won't need anyone to push you. You won't need anyone to motivate you. Your purpose will pull you forward, even when the path is difficult. Now let's talk about the daily practice of doing it alone, because this isn't something you do once in a while. It's something you do every single day. Every day you've got to show up for yourself. Every day you've got to keep your commitments to yourself. Every day you've got to do the work, even when nobody's watching, even when nobody would know if you skipped it. This is where character is built. This is where integrity is developed. When you keep promises to yourself, when you follow through on your commitments even when no one else knows about them, you develop self-trust. You prove to yourself that you're reliable, that you're serious, that you can count on yourself, and self-trust is the foundation of everything else. You can't achieve great things if you don't trust yourself. You can't pursue big goals if you're constantly breaking promises to yourself. You can't become successful if you can't depend on yourself to follow through. So start small if you need to. Make a commitment to yourself. Maybe it's reading for 30 minutes every morning, or exercising 4 times a week, or working on your project for 1 hour every evening. Whatever it is, make the commitment and keep it. Do it for a week, then a month, then 3 months. And watch what happens. Watch how your confidence grows. Watch how your self-respect increases. Watch how your belief in yourself expands. Because every time you keep a commitment to yourself, you're sending a message to your subconscious mind. I'm the kind of person who does what they say they're going to do. I'm the kind of person who follows through. I'm the kind of person who can be trusted. And over time, this becomes your identity. You become someone who doesn't need external accountability because you hold yourself accountable. You become someone who doesn't need external discipline because you've developed internal discipline. Let me tell you about the compound effect of doing it alone. When you work consistently, when you show up day after day, when you keep making progress even when it's slow, the results compound over time. At first, it doesn't seem like much. You work hard and the results are modest. You put in effort and the progress is small, and it's tempting to get discouraged, to think it's not working, to wonder if all this effort is worth it. But if you keep going, if you stay consistent, if you trust the process, eventually you reach a tipping point. The results start to accelerate. The progress becomes visible. The compound effect kicks in. It's like pushing a heavy flywheel. At first, it takes enormous effort to get it moving. Each push produces only a tiny bit of movement, but you keep pushing. And gradually, the flywheel starts to turn a little faster. And with continued effort, it builds momentum, and eventually it's spinning so fast that it takes minimal effort to keep it going. Success works the same way. The beginning is the hardest part. The early days and weeks and months when you're working hard but seeing little return, that's when most people quit. They don't understand that they're building momentum, that they're creating compound returns, that their efforts are accumulating even when they can't see the results yet. But if you do it alone, if you keep going when others quit, if you persist through the period where results are invisible, you'll reach the point where results become inevitable. And this is one of the greatest rewards of doing it alone. You develop patience. You develop long-term thinking. You develop the ability to delay gratification and trust the process. Most people are too impatient. They want instant results. They want immediate gratification. They want to see the payoff right away. And when they don't get it, they quit and move on to something else. But success doesn't work on a microwave timeline. It works on a slow cooker timeline. The good stuff takes time. The worthwhile achievements require sustained effort over months and years, not days and weeks. When you commit to doing it alone, you commit to the long game. You stop looking for shortcuts and quick fixes. You stop jumping from one opportunity to another, always chasing the next shiny object. You plant yourself, you dig in, and you grow where you're planted. Let me address fear, because it's one of the biggest obstacles to doing it alone. When you step out on your own, when you take responsibility for your own success, when you stop depending on others, it's scary. What if you fail? What if you're not capable? What if you discover that without other people's support, you can't do it? These fears are normal. Everyone feels them. But here's what you need to understand. Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is not a valid reason to avoid doing what you need to do. Fear is just information. It's your mind's way of telling you that something is important, that something matters, that something is at stake. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Courage is acknowledging the fear, accepting it, and then moving forward despite it. And here's something interesting. When you do it alone, when you face your fears and push through them, you discover something powerful. You discover that you're stronger than you thought. You discover that you're more capable than you believed. You discover that fear was lying to you about what you could handle. Every time you face a fear and overcome it, you grow. You expand. You become more confident, more capable, more powerful. And the fears that used to stop you cold start to have less and less power over you. This is one of the greatest gifts of doing it alone. You become fearless. Not because you stop feeling fear, but because you learn to act in spite of it. You learn that fear is just a feeling, not a fact. You learn that you can feel afraid and still move forward. Now let me talk about the importance of standards. When you're doing it alone, there's no one to hold you to high standards except yourself. There's no boss checking your work. There's no team depending on you. There's no one to impress. And this is where a lot of people fail. When no one's watching, when no one's checking, when no one would know the difference, they cut corners, they lower their standards, they do just enough to get by. But this is a fatal mistake, because your standards determine your results, and more importantly, your standards determine who you become. If you allow yourself to do mediocre work when no one's watching, you're training yourself to be mediocre. If you allow yourself to take the easy way when no one would know, you're programming yourself to always take the easy way. But if you hold yourself to high standards, even when no one else is paying attention, especially when no one else is paying attention, you're training yourself for excellence. You're programming yourself for success. The most successful people I know have incredibly high standards for themselves. They don't do their best work to impress others. They do it to satisfy themselves. They're not trying to meet someone else's expectations. They're trying to live up to their own. This is what professionalism really means. It's not about what you do for a paycheck. It's about the standards you hold regardless of who's watching or who's paying. When you do it alone, you've got to be your own quality control. You've got to be your own toughest critic. You've got to refuse to accept anything less than your best, even when no one else would know the difference, because you'll know, and that's what matters. Your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you'll ever have. And you can't have a good relationship with yourself if you're constantly disappointing yourself, if you're constantly settling for less than you're capable of. Let me talk about the mental game of doing it alone. Success is largely mental. It's about how you think, what you believe, how you interpret events, what stories you tell yourself. When you're doing it alone, you've got to become a master of your own mind. You've got to learn to control your thoughts rather than being controlled by them. You've got to learn to question your assumptions, challenge your limiting beliefs, and replace negative thought patterns with empowering ones. This requires awareness. You've got to pay attention to what's going on in your head. You've got to notice when you're thinking thoughts that don't serve you, and then you've got to actively replace those thoughts with better ones. Most people are unconscious of their own thinking. They accept whatever thoughts pop into their heads as truth. They believe every negative story their mind tells them. They let their mental chatter control their emotions and their actions. But when you commit to doing it alone, you can't afford that luxury. You've got to become conscious. You've got to become intentional about what you think about, what you believe, and what you tell yourself. This is inner work. It's not flashy, it's not exciting, but it's absolutely crucial, because your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Your results are a product of your thoughts and beliefs. If you believe you can't do it, you won't. If you believe you're not capable, you'll prove yourself right. If you tell yourself you're a victim, you'll act like a victim. But if you believe in yourself, if you tell yourself empowering stories, if you focus on possibilities rather than limitations, you'll find ways to succeed that others miss. You'll persist where others quit. You'll achieve things that others say are impossible. So guard your mind carefully. Feed it good information. Fill it with empowering beliefs. Train it to focus on solutions rather than problems, on opportunities rather than obstacles, on what you can control rather than what you can't. Now let's talk about resilience, because when you're doing it alone, you're going to face setbacks. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to experience failures. This is guaranteed. The question is not whether you'll face adversity. The question is how you'll respond to it. Most people let setbacks defeat them. They experience a failure and take it as a sign that they should quit, that it's not meant to be, that they're not cut out for it. But successful people, people who do it alone and make it work, they see setbacks differently. They see them as feedback, as learning opportunities, as necessary steps on the path to success. Thomas Edison famously said he didn't fail to create the light bulb. He just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. That's resilience. That's the mindset you need when you're doing it alone. Every failure teaches you something. Every mistake shows you what doesn't work, which gets you closer to what does work. Every setback gives you an opportunity to develop strength, to build character, to prove to yourself that you can overcome. But you've got to choose this interpretation. You've got to actively decide to see adversity as opportunity rather than as evidence that you should quit. And this gets easier the more you do it. The more times you face a setback and push through it, the more confident you become in your ability to handle whatever comes. You develop anti-fragility. You actually get stronger through adversity. This is a massive competitive advantage. While others are fragile, easily discouraged by obstacles, you become someone who thrives on challenges. While others are looking for easy paths, you're willing to take the difficult path because you know it will make you stronger. Let me tell you something about the journey of doing it alone. It changes you. It transforms you. You don't just achieve different results. You become a different person. You become more confident because you've proven to yourself what you're capable of. You become more independent because you've learned to rely on yourself. You become more resilient because you've faced adversity and overcome it. You become more disciplined because you've developed the habit of following through. And these qualities, confidence, independence, resilience, discipline, they're worth more than any specific achievement. They're transferable. They apply to every area of your life. They make you successful not just in one area, but across the board. This is the real value of doing it alone. It's not just about accomplishing a particular goal, it's about who you become in the process. And here's the beautiful thing. Once you've done it alone once you've proven to yourself that you can, it becomes easier the next time. You have evidence that you're capable, you have experience to draw on, you have confidence in yourself. So it gets easier. Not because the challenges become smaller, but because you become bigger. You expand, you grow, you develop capacities you didn't have before. Now, I want to address something that might be holding you back. Some of you are thinking, I want to do it alone, but I don't know how. I don't have the skills, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the resources. Let me tell you something. Nobody knows how at the beginning. Nobody starts with all the skills and knowledge they need. If you wait until you know exactly how to do it, you'll never start. The path becomes clear as you walk it. The skills develop as you need them. The resources appear as you move forward. This is a fundamental principle of success. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You just need to take the first step. And then the next step becomes visible. And then the next. But most people never take the first step because they can't see the whole staircase. They want guarantees. They want certainty. They want to know exactly how it's all going to work out before they begin. But life doesn't offer those guarantees. Success doesn't come with a detailed instruction manual. You've got to figure it out as you go. And here's the thing. You're capable of figuring it out. You're more resourceful than you think. You're more creative than you believe. You're more adaptable than you realize. But you'll never discover these capabilities if you don't put yourself in a position where you need them. You'll never know what you're capable of if you don't challenge yourself, if you don't push beyond your current limits, if you don't do something that scares you. So stop waiting until you're ready. You'll never feel completely ready. Stop waiting until you know how. You'll figure it out along the way. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. Just start, take action, do something, and learn as you go. This is how everyone who's ever accomplished anything great has done it. They started before they were ready. They figured it out as they went. They made mistakes and learned from them. They faced obstacles and found ways around them. You can do the same thing, but you got to be willing to be uncomfortable. You got to be willing to not know. You've got to be willing to make mistakes and look foolish and fail and try again. This is part of doing it alone. Nobody's going to make it easy for you. Nobody's going to hand you a foolproof plan. Nobody's going to remove all the uncertainty and risk. You've got to be willing to walk into the unknown and trust that you'll find your way. Let me talk to you about the power of decision. When you truly decide to do it alone, when you make a real decision, not just a wish or a hope or a good intention, everything changes. A real decision is different from a preference. A preference is, I'd like to succeed. A decision is, I will succeed, period, end of story. A preference leaves room for maybe. A decision eliminates all other options. When you make a real decision to do it alone, to take total responsibility for your results, to do whatever it takes, you cut yourself off from all escape routes. You burn the boats. You commit fully. And this level of commitment activates something powerful within you. Suddenly, you start seeing opportunities you didn't see before. Solutions start appearing. Ideas start flowing. Energy starts building. Why? Because when you're truly committed, your mind goes to work figuring out how to make it happen. When you're just interested or when you're hoping or when you're trying, your mind is divided. Part of you is looking for ways to make it work, and part of you is looking for reasons why it won't. But when you're committed, really committed, your entire mind aligns behind your goal. You stop debating. You stop second guessing. You just focus on execution. So make the decision. Decide right now that you're going to do it alone. Decide that you're going to take responsibility. Decide that you're going to make it happen no matter what. And then back up that decision with action. Because decisions without action are just daydreams. You've got to prove to yourself that you're serious by taking immediate action. It doesn't have to be a huge action. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something that moves you forward, that demonstrates commitment, that starts building momentum. Because momentum is everything. Once you get moving, it becomes easier to keep moving. Once you start seeing results, even small ones, it becomes easier to believe, to stay motivated, to keep pushing. But you've got to create that initial momentum yourself. Nobody can do it for you. Now, as we come toward the end of our time together, I want to leave you with this. Doing it alone doesn't mean ending up alone. When you develop the capacity to do it alone, when you prove to yourself and the world that you don't need anyone else to make you successful, something interesting happens. You attract amazing people into your life. You attract other strong, independent, capable people who respect what you've built. You attract mentors who want to help you because they see your initiative and your commitment. You attract partners who want to collaborate because they know you'll carry your weight. But these relationships are different from the dependent relationships most people have. These are relationships of strength joining with strength, not weakness seeking strength. These are partnerships of equals, not one person carrying another. And these kinds of relationships are far more rewarding, far more productive, far more fulfilling. So yes, do it alone. Develop the capacity to stand on your own 2 feet. Build the discipline, the skills, the confidence, the resilience to make things happen by yourself. But don't do it because you want to end up alone. Do it so that when you do connect with others, you're connecting from a position of strength rather than need. Do it so you have something valuable to offer. Do it so you're a contributor, not just a consumer. Do it so you can be a true partner, not just a dependent. This is the path to real success. This is the path to real fulfillment. This is the path to becoming everything you're capable of becoming. So I challenge you today, stop waiting for someone to save you. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for permission or approval or support. Just start. Do it alone. Take responsibility. Take action. Make mistakes. Learn. Grow. Persist. Because the life you want is waiting on the other side of your willingness to do it alone. The success you dream about will come when you stop looking for it in other people and start creating it within yourself. You have everything you need right now to begin. You have a mind that can learn and grow. You have hands that can work. You have a heart that can persist. You have a spirit that can overcome. So use them, trust them, believe in them, do it alone, and watch what happens when you do. Your life will never be the same. Thank you.